In my remarks, I told my Rotary story, and I mentioned the person that helped me connect my membership in Rotary with my heart's desire for service. This was my Rotary moment. I joined Northville Rotary in June of 2002. In 2004, a friend asked me to join him on a board of an organization serving poor and marginalized communities in El Salvador. I didn't know anything about El Salvador, and he gave me a book, Memories in Mosaic, which contained the personal memories of the friends of Oscar Romero, the martyred Archbishop of San Salvador. I joined that board, and during one of those trips and board meetings in El Salvador, I met Sister Peggy O'Neill. She's from Jersey City, New Jersey. She's been in El Salvador in the countryside, or the Campo as they call it, with the people there for over 30 years. Those 30 years included terrible years of the Civil War, and over the past decade, I've been there 16 times. She and I have become good friends. At first, Peggy didn't know I was a Rotarian. It was during an early trip to El Salvador that she mentioned to me that she had participated in the dedication of a Rotary water project in the area, a project that was supported by Rotary clubs from Indiana. That blew me away. I exclaimed, "Hey, I'm a Rotarian." She looked at me, shaking her head, and she said, "You know, when I meet Rotarians, good things happen." That is the moment I truly became a Rotarian. Sister Peggy helped me to find something that I'm passionate about, clean water and sanitation, and enabled me to use Rotary as the means to accomplish some wonderful things for the communities with a particular need. This is what Rotarians all over the world do. And thanks to Peggy, this is how I've come to stand before you today. But Peggy's influence in my life goes even deeper. Over the years, she has become dear not only to me, but to Lisa and my sons Wayne and David. And I'm sure after meeting her this weekend and sharing her story, she will become quite special to you as well. Please welcome with me a remarkable lady and a wonderful friend, Sister Peggy O'Neill.
Thank you. I've never been so wired in my life as I am right. So if I go like this, I'm not scratching anything. There's a box there. I'm going to try for a job when I retire with CNN, maybe. I know how to do it now. I'm not going to read to you, but I need this because I'm going to mention what happened to me this morning, and I want to give credit to those who really moved me this morning. I really mean it. I stand here with buddies and family, and I have another chance to say something again tomorrow, so I'll speak about the people I truly love in this room. And but I want to say I stand here with an attitude of gratitude. And I'm thinking specifically about not all the ways I've benefited from your love that comes in gifts that are so useful, like water, and helping clinics, and helping young people imagine and know their own story. But I want to tell you what happened to me this morning when Governor Rick, as he spoke, I heard other stories, like the real story of the multiplication of loaves and fishes. $14, 14 fishes, no? I heard the story, he didn't call it, but he was telling us again the story of the widow's mite. I was deeply grateful because stories build on stories. And we have to keep interpreting in new context old stories. When Dr. Gutpa, when you just stood there and with your good morning you gave me that namaste, that is so meaningful to me. It was a moment in which I really did feel that you were in your deepest space, greeting my deepest space, and we were one. When I talk about God or that deepest space or mystery, I almost have to do this because of namaste, no? I don't do that anymore up there. It's right here. You know, I'm glad we had a woman in our tradition. Her real name was Miriam. We do call her Mary. And she really began a religious revolution. I like to think of her as the drummer girl. You know, we Christians, we do things like bum, 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 bum. You know that drummer boy? I think we really should start singing the bum, 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 up a little higher. But the drummer girl, what she really was saying, even though she didn't know that really was embedded in her story, she was saying no longer do you have to look for God in the sky. She was saying right here. I love it when men have to do double think. You know, but that womb right here, she was trying to point to that sense of that life source, no? So anyway, that happened to me this morning. And then you also talked about, for me, I had to ask myself the question this afternoon. The question about the Good Samaritan. You know, who is your neighbor? Oh, you Rotarians ask the question, you answer the question, and you act on the answer. Who is your neighbor? Yes, the Samaritan. Oh, yes. Yes, the refugees from Syria and El Salvador. Yes, the troubled kids in Chicago. Yes, the whale. The trees. It's getting bigger and bigger as I get smaller and smaller. I still try to, you know, as I get older and older, I am thrilled that I know what so many people know, have different names maybe for what I know, but I do know that we are all connected, no? And then, Kieran, I wish I could take him home. If I weren't an old lady, I'd say, please marry me. Talk to me all the time. Come on. Come on.
I'm married.
Are you married?
No.
Okay. That was a proposal. You know, there was a couple of things running through my mind, as you can imagine. First of all, I was so happy he spoke about America Latina, and he could have spoken about 7 other countries, no? But something that really kept haunting me today, listening. Meaningless lives on one continent can cause meaningless deaths on other continents. No? Yeah. So many stories. I'm here to, I think, tell you the story of my life, but you can look at me and I'm an old woman, and if I really told you the story of my life, you'd never go home. I had the opportunity to begin to do that in an open house at my house, at Wayne and Lisa's house, and I really began when I was like 6. And I think I will begin there for one reason. So those of you who have heard this, be patient with me. I'm so old that I was alive when the armistice was signed, World War II. And I happened to be at the Jersey, I don't have to talk in that, that's right. I happened to be at the Jersey Shore. It was August. And Mother said to us, we have to go down to the church and thank God we won. The war is over. Well, I heard we won, so that meant we were happy. And so we walked to this small church on Monmouth Beach. My dad was a plumber, and he didn't have a vacation. He was a construction worker and president of his union, I must say. But so he only came down on weekends, and I don't know what day it landed on, but Dad wasn't home, so it was just Mother and I think there were only 3 of us. We finally became 7 eventually. But anyway, we walked to church, and we got into church, and I saw this woman on my left side. She was young, and she was crying. And that troubled me. And, because I was happy. So we walked up, and Mother always went to the front, and little on the side, and she told us to say a prayer, and thank God the war was over. And when I came out of church, I said to Mother, was she the enemy? She was crying. I thought she lost. And I know when you won, you were happy, and when you lost, you were sad. Well, she kind of looked at me and smiled, and she said, we'll talk about that on the way home. And that was such an awakening for me to know you could win and still lose. We didn't all win, and maybe we all lost something sometimes, like in wars, no? No one wins. But that happened to me when I was a little girl. I hope I was really little, because that was a little stupid, But that sense of winning and losing and competition, and I remember my dad once sent me a postcard when I was in the novitiate, and we could only get so many letters when I was studying to be a sister, and Daddy would send me postcards. He wasn't the writer, my mother was the writer. And anyway, I remember the only thing it said on the card, as I was studying and getting degrees and all this, remember, Peggy, even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. Even if you, my dad was wonderful, devil's advocate. Yeah, I better stay humble. Even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. And so I grew up in a happy home. I will talk a little bit about my dad, because my dad didn't get sons until quite late. We were 4 girls first, and then a boy, and then another girl, and then a boy. And but I think it's not political. I'm on CNN now. I can't be. This is political. But I think you called me a tomboy. Did anybody here remember that phrase? It's not a politically correct phrase anymore. But anyway, I did sports with my dad. And, I was good at baseball, softball, and basketball. And my father enjoyed playing with me and teaching me. And whenever I would go off to play, he would always say, now do your best, Peggy. Don't cheat. Don't play dirty. That was the final phrase always. Do your best. Don't cheat, and don't play dirty. And that really scarred me, that little phrase. And I remember going to school long after that with the Sisters of Charity. That's the strong women that I have lived with for 60 years this month, by the way, March this year. Yeah. Thank you. I never got married, though. Okay. Anyway, I can remember when I was in probably about the 6th grade, we did in history class or social studies, I don't know what they called it then, and we were studying about World War II. And, I was really troubled. And I got home and waited for my dad, got in about 5 o'clock, and I said, Daddy, I have a question. And I said to him, Daddy, what about that big bomb? Did we win dirty? And my father looked at me and he said, Jean, that's my mother, Jean, Peggy has a question. And the two of them communicated so beautifully to me in whatever words I couldn't ever remember. But they communicated to me, oh, Peggy, your government will do things you don't like sometimes. Again, that was an awakening for me because I knew we were number one. I knew we were the best. But somehow and there were tears in their eyes. They knew that was an awakening for me. I could go on because I'm going to be 78, so you don't want to hear it all. But there are awakenings. You talked about awakening. Where are you? Jennifer Jones. When you talked today, you know what kept going inside me? It happens to me a lot of time at my Buddhist prayer. It happens to me, I want to say to myself, after that meditation, Peggy, stay awake. Stay awake. You know, we've got to search for the inner meaning of the universe and human life. Stay awake. You know what I want them to say at my funeral and all of your funerals? I want them to say about Rotarians and about Sisters of Charity, all my students. They died, or she died on the last day of her life, no sooner. If they can say that about me, I'll just go, yay! She died on the last day of her life. She continued to wonder, to struggle, and to grow. That's what else do we want? Keep on keeping on, no? That's a bumper sticker, I guess. So, let's begin. I had lots of awakenings, too. I remember I always knew racism was a sin. I mean, I knew that. But then when Martin Luther King came on the scene, boy, did I see it as sinful. I stared at it. How could you not? You know, I mean, I lived through the women's movement. Wow. I always knew we were strong women in my own household. And then the Sisters of Charity. We didn't burn our bras. We didn't even have bras. We wore T-shirts. But but we marched. We marched. We knew who we were. And we were Vatican Council II. You know, and then I go to El Salvador thinking I'm prepared. I knew I wasn't going to be an ugly American. We were through that period. You know, I knew I wasn't going to impose my culture. I was aware, you know. But I'll tell you about that awakening. It took only a month, and it's been the most serious awakening in my life. It was like getting sunburn on your eyeballs. I'm Irish, and I get a lot of sunburn. And you know when you peel? When I was looking, because I couldn't speak any Spanish, so I kept staring to find out what was really going on. So as I kept looking, it was like skin peeling away from my eyes. It was the first time I really was in the midst of innocent suffering on a large scale. Innocent, peaceful, humble, proud at the same time people. And I'll tell you, that was a rude awakening. It's one that it still unsettles me thinking about it. You know? I mean, imagine 30 billion with a B. Children go to bed hungry with a B. Scandals that I knew about but didn't come into my carne propria, as we say in Spanish. I didn't feel it in my very flesh. You know? And at the same time, I never laughed so hard at myself. Here I am with a PhD, and I can't even talk like a 2-year-old. And you know, so my first job in El Salvador was to drive a truck to the prisons to visit political prisoners, because I worked in a refugee camp. No Spanish, no speaking, okay? But I have a very good sense of direction. So they trusted me with the truck to take some wounded, I call them rebels, because if you say in English guerrillas, you think of Tarzan. You know, guerrilleras simply means the little army, the non-governmental army, okay? So I call them rebels. The Red Cross would bring wounded rebels to this refugee camp where I was first for a few months. And, but I had a good sense of direction, so I could bring them to wherever they told me to go, and no problem. One time they tried to rob my truck. Did I ever tell you that, Wayne? No, maybe not. I got very little Spanish, all right? I never went to school to study Spanish. I mean, the war was on. There were no schools, you know. Anyway, so this guy, I was waiting for a patient, and I come out, and this guy's trying to open my truck. And I said, what's going on? What's going on? You can't steal that truck. That truck takes care of widows and orphans. And I was screaming in very bad Spanish. So he goes, okay, lady, okay, lady. And guess what? He stole the truck, two trucks down. I saw him get in, and he went away. I mean, he still got his truck, but I had mine, so...